try that again. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the CAC. I'm Ian Spula, Manager of Public Engagement. I hope you had a chance to mingle a bit, eat some cheese, say hello to your friends. And thank you for joining us for an in-depth look at the renovation and expansion of the historic Southside Community Arts Center. It's the biggest transformation in that institution's 85 years. The center is under heavy construction, so we're honored to provide a space tonight for a presentation and conversation. Our speakers will impart valuable design and preservation intel and historical background. And we'll hear from lead architect Ann Lui, preservation architect Kay Kennedy-Whiters, and SSCAC executive director Monique Brinkman-Hill. Kennedy's in from New York, here by some miracle after all those flight cancellations. So especially honored to have you here. So after a trio of short talks, our speakers will be joined in conversation by none other than Chicago Times architecture critic Lee Bey. And we'll conclude with your audience questions. Looking to March for a second, I hope you can make Preservation Chicago's annual unveiling of their most endangered buildings list next Wednesday at noon. Register for free at architecture.org for in-person or virtual. And then please join us again on March 26th for a special book launch celebration and reception with Alicia Ponce Arcatina, and in celebration of the launch of Latinas in Architecture Volume 3, which will be for sale here as well. There is a catered reception and live music in the gallery after that talk. So let me briefly introduce our speakers and get the show on the road. Monique Brinkman-Hill is a Chicago native and cultural executive dedicated to the preservation and future of Black art and artists. She serves as executive director of the historic Southside Community Arts Center, the nation's oldest independently run Black arts institution in its original location, stewarding an 85-year legacy of Black artistic excellence and cultural preservation. Kay Kennedy-Whiters is a preservation architect, published writer, and educator. She leads wrkSHäp kiloWatt with over 20 years experience in architecture, preservation, planning, and project management. She's a graduate of the Master of Architecture and the Master of Urban Planning programs at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Kennedy earned licenses to practice architecture in Washington State and New York State, and has led and been part of the preservation of over 50 projects across the country, many of which center storytelling around the diverse spectrum of the Black experience. And in addition to wrkSHäp kiloWatt, Kennedy is the principal of Studio KW Architecture and Preservation in New York. She's an adjunct professor of historic preservation at Columbia University's Graduate School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation, and the founder of Black in Historic Preservation. Ann Lui is founding principal of Future Firm, an architecture and design research practice based here in Chicago. Future Firm serves clients who are change makers in the field, including nonprofits, arts and cultural organizations, and community-led developers. Ann's the incoming director of undergraduate architecture studies and an associate professor of practice at the University of Chicago starting this fall. She has held teaching positions across the US, including at Rice and Ohio State, and currently as an assistant professor of practice at the University of Michigan, and was co-curator of the US Pavilion at the 2018 Venice Architecture Biennale, titled Dimensions of Citizenship. And she's recipient of the 2025 Richard H. Driehaus Community Impact Award. And finally, Lee Bey is our architecture critic for the Sun-Times, a member of the Sun-Times editorial board, where he writes editorials on city governance, neighborhood development, politics, and urban planning. He's the author of Southern Exposure, the Overlooked Architecture of Chicago's South Side, which showcases his architectural photography and social commentary. He's also an adjunct professor at the IIT College of Architecture and recipient of the 2021 Julius Shulman Institute Excellence in Photography Award and the 2019 Distinguished Service Award by the Chicago chapter of the AIA. Lee's previous positions include Director of Media and Government Affairs for the Chicago office of SOM, Executive Director of the Chicago Central Area Committee, and Deputy Chief of Staff for Architecture and Urban Planning under Chicago Mayor Richard M. Daley. All right, so please help me welcome Monique to the stage.
Good evening. Yay. First of all, let me just say thank you to the Chicago Architectural Center. Their team, Ebred and Ian, and the entire crew has been amazing, easy to work with, and we're real excited that they honored us by having this conversation this evening. I also want to thank each of you for coming out. I know on what is today, Wednesday night, we can all think of things that we might want to do, but the fact that you're here tonight is really critically important for us, for awareness for this project. I was really excited too to see our alderman, Dow, who's here. She has been extremely supportive of this project in the Bronzeville community. And so with that, I just want to say thank you. As Ian said, I'm Monique Brinkman-Hill, the Executive Director of the Southside Community Arts Center. And it's my great pleasure to give a little bit of background on the center. The Southside Community Arts Center was founded in 1940. It's the oldest continuously operating Black arts center in the United States. But that fact alone does not capture its meaning. And we always say continuously operating because we're not quite sure. Someone may have a little museum in their back, yard or in the garage. And so we want to make sure that we are always transparent. The center was born during the Great Depression, supported in part by the Works Progress Administration, a New Deal program that invested in artists and cultural institutions. Can you hear me?
Yeah, for sure. You want to advance the slides?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm really bad with slide clicking, but that's okay. Yeah. Yay, there's the building. Nothing like a on-the-job training, thank you. At a time, so I want to think back for a second. This was 1940 was a time when Black artists were excluded from mainstream institutions. It wasn't simply a space created to be a gallery. It was created as a sanctuary, as a strategy, as self-determination. Artists like Charles White, Elizabeth Catlett, Dr. Margaret Burroughs, and Archibald Motley found more than wall space. They found community. They found belonging. This shows in 1940, and I think you may see this photo more than once, but this was the opening. We had then sitting First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, who came to the south side of Chicago. It seems kind of, obvious at this point, but in 1940, this was huge. This was the opening. And this is why it meant so much, is because people didn't have this experience. The center understood something profound. Culture is civic power. Our mission remains clear: to conserve, preserve, and promote the legacy and the future of Black art and artists while educating the community on the value of art and culture. We're located, I'll go back to that one. We're located 3831 South Michigan in the heart of Bronzeville, a community that's shaped music, politics, literature, and social movements across this country. The South Side has never been scenery. It's always been sacred ground. For 85 years, the center has served as a training ground for artists, a gathering place for neighbors, a site of political and cultural dialogue, and a steward of generational memory. We exhibit, which is one of these slides. We just gravitated towards a couple of slides. We've had so many exhibitions, you'd be here all night looking at them, but these are just some of the slides of exhibitions that have been housed at the Southside Community Arts Center. So what's happening now is so exciting. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how thrilled we are. 85 years, as you can imagine. It was time for a little love. The building, if you've been in there in the last a couple years, you knew that, we were down to one bathroom. We didn't have the air working, but there was so much love. There was so much community that people kept coming back. We know the value, the importance, the significance. So this historic 1890s Georgia Revival building requires the restoration to support this next 85 years and the artists and the community and people that come following us. So when I think about this, I think about we're not only rebuilding the structure, but we are also strengthening the systems, financial, infrastructure, staffing, and operational capacity that will allow the institution to thrive long after we reopen. So I want to get to the meat and the heart of everything, and that's going to come with some of the history from Kennedy and the plans from Ann, and certainly your questions to Lee and to us. But I just wanted you all to know how important this moment is for the Southside Community Arts Center, how important it is for the artists that come follow. This is a moment in time that everyone in this room is a part of. And we're super excited to have you here. This is some more exhibitions, some programs. Again, I'm the queen of, move the slide. This picture you'll see quite a bit. This was, for want of a better word, the altar call for artists in 2005. It wasn't like we have now where, kids get together and they all text each other and they come together. This was a lot more hands-on. This involved phone calls and tell your neighbor. And this was the compilation of all the artists that say, hey, we're meeting on the stoops of the Southside Community Arts Center to take a photo. It's in my office. We have posters. It's really exciting because in the center, there's Dr. Margaret Burroughs. There are a lot of artists here who have joined the ancestors and are no longer with us. But this photo represents how important coming together was for these artists at the Southside Community Arts Center. And of course, as everyone knows, there's always a couple who missed the photo. And what did they say? Can we retake it? It's like, no. Not a minute goes by a year that people don't come to me and say, when are we going to take another one? So perhaps in our new building, when we have the construction complete, and when you see some of the wonderful renderings, you'll see that we may actually have a new space to take a new photo, and we'll be excited how the robocall works, and certainly we want to make sure that everybody gets there. But with that, I want to introduce and bring up Kennedy Witter. She's going to come up, I believe. Ian, are we still making some transitions, or are we good? Oh, here he comes. Okay. So while I've got you, I hope you enjoyed some wine and cheese and this opportunity to support the Southside Community Arts Center. We've got funders in the room. Yay. We've got our board of directors in the room. Double yay. We've got our incredible team who does a lot of heavy lifting, and we're a mighty team of 4 at the moment, but we're doing incredible things, and we're hoping that with the new facility that we'll also be able to expand teams and build the capacity to run this great center. So come on up. No, I'm just biding time, waiting on you to get here. So with that, thank you so very much for being here tonight. We hope you'll enjoy the program. We know you'll learn a lot about the center. Kennedy has some amazing historical information that she shares that we all are excited about. And working with Future Firm and the entire team has been amazing. Brown and Moman, Berglund. I see our amazing owners rep in the back. Yay. Thank you so much. And the entire team with Kennedy and Ann and everyone else who came. Oh, hi, more. I can't give everybody a shout out, so I'm sorry, but he's setting up the slideshow. So with that, thank you very much, and we'll see you shortly.
Thank you. I have a script or else I'll talk for hours, so. Bill, you know, okay. Let's see. Okay. In 1940, the site committee signed a contract to purchase the 3-story brick home. The first floor, living area, was the ideal space for the future gallery, and the top 2 floors were renovated for workshops, studios, and classes. The dilapidated structure was in need of major repairs, as it had been used last as a kitchenette tenement. IAP, Illinois Art Project, designers and architects provided renovation plans, and Bronzeville businessmen donated construction materials. Over a 5-month period, IAP artists worked around the clock to construct a gallery, classrooms, meeting space, and craft shops. The interior of the center fused European and American design principles, and today provides one of the few remaining models of this style. WPA craftsmen constructed furniture for the building. Burroughs was pleased with the renovations, as expert craftsmen from the FAP, Federal Art Project, quote, did an excellent job of modernization while the fine features of the original structure were still retained. University of Cincinnati Master of Art thesis entitled A Fortress Where Beauty is Cherished, Protected, and Cultivated, the Southside Community Arts Center, 1940 to 1991, by Anna R. Hearn, published in 2009. If historic preservation is storytelling about the built environment, then many people in this room have been writing the next chapter of the Southside Community Arts Center's preservation story for the past few years. The following is a brief synopsis of this story that I've had the honor of co-authoring with the team since 2023. Good evening. My name is Kay Whiters. I'm the founding principal of wrkSHäp kiloWatt, a historic preservation and owners rep studio based in New York. On occasion, we partner with sub-consultants in allied preservation fields to support our client collaborators. For the center, we partnered with 2 firms that provide services internationally, Jablonski Building Conservators and Leverett Masonry Consulting. The latter is based here, not too far from the center. Although I live and work in New York, at my core, I'm a hybrid Chicago South Suburbs and South Side kid and an Illinois grad. So it's pretty amazing to be presenting a project at the center right now. Thank you, Ann, for inviting me and Craig to collaborate with you all. And across the river from us is one of the projects I worked on when I was an intern, actually 20 years ago. So vis-a-vis the Great Migration, both sides of my family and I have been connected to the South Side, specifically Bronzeville, for generations. Therefore, supporting the team as its preservation lead is of both of personal and professional importance to me. Okay. Yes, I'll go back. Okay. wrkSHäp kiloWatt is home to Black and historic preservation. In February, we kicked off our 2026 program theme called BIN Preservation, acknowledging that contrary to belief, Black people have been preservationists since before the passage of the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966. With our Black Preservation Ancestors Profile series, last week, to promote tonight's presentation and commemorate 60 years of the DuSable Museum, we profiled Dr. Margaret Taylor Burroughs, adding to her legacy that she was a Black preservationist. Many of these ancestors are unknown to the general public or known, yet few know of their preservation activity, nor view them as preservationists. We are changing that narrative. And specific to the center, Monique and the center staff, Bill and the board of directors are building upon a legacy of Black-led building reuse at 3831 South Michigan. wrkSHäp kiloWatt's preservation scope has spanned from schematic design to construction documents, with these specific professional services peppered in that are common for a preservation architect to provide. Critical to fulfilling the preservation scope has been an understanding of the center's landmark status, which has enabled coordination with the city and state preservation agencies on the design. The center is one of the Southside's unique gems because it is a time capsule of Chicago, national, and international history. Unique to its status as a landmark is that it has two designations. One, locally, it's a Chicago individual landmark, and two, nationally, is on the National Register of Historic Places. And for Bill and Monique, maybe after this, we can talk about it becoming one of the 1,000 plus UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And I am so serious. Yeah, claps in the audience. I am so serious. So, all right. So there are 4 types of treatment that fall under the umbrella of historic preservation, collectively known as the 4 Rs. The current project, after continued reflection on our evolving scope, the current project actually checks all 4 boxes. Zooming out, the entire project is the rehabilitation, repair of existing materials and the existing building as a whole, and in addition to it. The proposed design in the Burroughs Gallery checks the box for restoration. Future firm and team's design appears to resemble the 1940 design of the gallery, demolishing the drop-down ceiling that contractors installed after the 1940 rehabilitation. The project's scope of work includes replacing existing architecture and engineering systems, such as a geothermal heat pump, replacing the existing mechanical heating and cooling system. The scope of work at the windows includes rebuilding window sashes that are not in masonry openings, checking the last box for reconstruction. Like any historic site that is a 130+ year young elder of the community, 3831 South Michigan has a tremendous amount of embodied memory vis-a-vis its many lives, supporting many lives. For the Historic Structures Report for the Coach House, I developed this chronology of repairs, and from this timeline we can see this 3-story building with its coach house is the epitome of rehabilitation and building reuse that reflects the evolution of life in Chicago and the US at large. Phase 1, a single family residence first, the Severance family, and then the Phase 2, multifamily housing, owned by the Phase for 8 tenants, and later owned by Victor Reitz and Faye's brother. And in its current phase since 1940, Phase 3, its commercial phase, as a community art center, art education center, and gallery space. from this timeline are two periods of significance that have served as the basis of the current preservation interventions. The first period of significance, the initial year of construction, 1892 to 1893. The second one, the collective of Black artists who would evolve to become the Southside Community Arts Center, purchased 3831 in 1940, which coincided with its new Bauhaus renovation, a unique, rare renovation of a building in Chicago and the United States, connecting to the school that preceded it in Dessau, Germany, the Bauhaus. In 1892, George A. Severance Jr., owner of the Severance Elevator Company, commissioned L. Gustav Hallberg, a Swedish-born architect who immigrated to Chicago to design the mansion and coach house in the classical Georgian Revival style. Thanks to the digitization of the U.S. Census records for Chicago in 1900, we know that Mr. Severance was not alone in this house. 3831 was home to his wife, Clara, and their two young sons, and a host of servants. And thanks to the census and someone like me who can read cursive, anyone else in the audience can read cursive, we know all of their names, including the names of the husband and wife who lived in the coach house, Charles Ansley and the, quote, barn man, as he's described in the census, and his wife, Mary. And fun fact, Charles Ansley was not the first barn man or coachman under Mr. Severance's employ. If anyone wants to learn of the drama around the first that I read in the 1896 articles on the screen last night in my hotel room, please see me after. And if anyone can clue me in to why Clara Severance had to buy 3831 from the Severance Elevator Company for $30,000 in 1906, this was after her husband made his transition. Please see me too, thank you. Okay. And we know the names of these subsequent residents, including servants in 1910 and in 1920. Viewing these records shows that at its initial year of construction through the 1910s, the number of laborers who lived in 3831 outnumbered the wealthy elite. So imagine, during this time period from 1893 to 1910, both sides of the 3800 block of South Michigan filled with similar classical revival masonry mansions, each with its own coach house, like the ones on the screen, and each with 5 to 6 people living and working in these homes of the wealthy elite of Chicago. Now imagine the people who maintain these homes, nurse the children of the owners, people from Ireland, Sweden, and Germany, and later Black migrants from the US South, like Alfred and Teresa, who worked at 3831. Would you say that this neighborhood that on the surface appears exclusive has a hidden layer of a working class immigrant and migrant neighborhood? I would. It was very much the case from 1890s through 1910s, an upstairs, downstairs, Downton Abbey, Gilded Age neighborhood like many in the city. And a side note about the change over time of the character of the neighborhood surrounding the center, it was also once home to one of North America's leading builders of fine carriages, the largest in Chicago. 1 block south of the center was C.P. Kimball and Company of Chicago. Contractors completed construction of the building, shown here in 1892, 1 year before the completion of 3831. Perhaps the carriage the Severance owned that lived in the coach house was a Kimball. It was definitely the case for another Southside resident at the time, the Glessners of Prairie Avenue. Shown here is the carriage monogram for their Kimball carriage and a carriage that resembles theirs. The second period of significance is the merging of like minds from around the globe, both refugees. First, the collectives of Black artists in the US, descendants of enslaved Black people, whose parents migrated with them north to flee the legacy of white-led violence against them. And 2, a collective of Eastern European immigrants who taught at the Bauhaus and immigrated to the United States after Hitler forced the closure of the school. From 1939 to 1940, Margaret Taylor Goss, later Burroughs, Bernard Goss, Archibald Motley, and other members of the Arts Craft Guild and the Southside Art Center planned with the WPA met with figures from a Renaissance that preceded their own Chicago Renaissance, the Harlem Renaissance, and fundraised for a more permanent space. Hungarian painter and former Bauhaus professor Laszlo Mihaly opened the new Bauhaus on October 18, 1937, with other World War II German refugees in the former Richard Morris Hunt designed Marshall Field Mansion at 1905 South Prairie Avenue, built in 1873. Despite U.S. segregation laws, they welcomed Black students. In 1941, Mihaly moved the school north to Streeterville. 2 years later, two of the school's instructors would lead the rehabilitation of 3831 for the center, and their names were Chaim Bradendieck and Nathan Lerner. Like the Bauhaus, the new Bauhaus designers experimented with furniture design, specifically plywood as a furniture fabrication material, such as this 1949 design, Chair in a Box, that some of you might recognize. It's a Lerner and Bradendieck design, a literal chair that comes in a box for the user to assemble, whose design aesthetic resembles a chair in the center's collection, shown here in the level 2 gallery. Within our immediate preservation scope of work, new Bauhaus design elements in the main house are on the first floor and are also the landmarked area specific to its Chicago Landmark Designation Ordinance. First, the reception area plus the main stairs, and second, the Dr. Margaret T. Burroughs Gallery. And we see a clear connection between the new Bauhaus experimentation at the Marshall Field Mansion, the photo shown from 1938, and how their experimentation at the Field Mansion influenced their design at the center in 1941. Painted plywood, enclosed guardrail with a bentwood topping at both stairs. At the Burroughs Gallery, they installed pine panels that were light over the existing wallpaper dating from the 1930s. And if you're in the center ever, just look between the pine panels, you can see remnants of that 1930s wallpaper. Okay, so back to the new Bauhaus School itself. Since 1949, it's been the Institute of Design at IIT. With the former site of the Field Mansion at IIT, the center is part of a network of sites on the south side associated with the new Bauhaus. Per the Chicago Landmark Ordinance, the entire exterior of the main building is a landmarked area. Leverett Masonry Consulting assessed the existing conditions, including mortar testing for repointing mortar composition. And wrkSHäp kiloWatt documented the interior and exterior elements of the coach house in a historic structures report. The masonry at the main building will receive a cleaning and repairs in high priority areas, such as step cracks. Masonry salvage will also include the brick pavers at the former carport adjacent to the coach house. I had one of those joyful, unexpected moments in the field when I saw the name of the kiln stamped on these bricks in the coach house carport. Heighton Alsop Brickyard, AKA the Alsop Brickyard, owned by Frank Alsop, yes, namesake of Alsop, Illinois. And fun fact, Illini Brick Company acquired Heighton Alsop Brickyard in 1899. We analyzed the windows and provided recommendations for their longevity and contribution to a weather-tight building envelope. Our infrared thermography at the Level 1 gallery has led to the hypothesis that there is a masonry opening sheetrocked over the interior that does not have window sashes, adding to the contractor's scope of work to provide and install 2 new window sashes at this opening. In other words, a reconstruction preservation scope of work. There's a decorative metal cornice at this south elevation, most likely from the 1893 construction, and the rest of the cornice is modern, devoid of detail. And so if the center moves forward with the scope of work of replacing the modern cornice, wrkSHäp kiloWatt has recommended a decorative detail to match the extant 1893 cornice to comply with Chicago Commission on Landmarks requirements for in-kind replacement on the landmarked exterior. And wrkSHäp kiloWatt cataloged each pine panel in the Burroughs Gallery and reception. Jablonski Building Conservation completed material conservation tests at the variety of wood finishes in the interior. To address select damage and deterioration of materials at the new Bauhaus reception desk, we've recommended a list of furniture restorers to restore it as close to its 1941 appearance. And last, one of the best discoveries up there with the wallpaper that's behind the pine paneling was a coffered ceiling hidden above the drop ceiling in the new Bauhaus reception area, most likely covered in the 1980s, around that time, at the same time that the center had covered the new Bauhaus ceiling in the Burroughs Gallery. So in the photo, you can see the wood framing of the coffers and the painted canvas in the coffered cells. The recommendation here is to remove the drop ceiling and replace the canvas infill in kind with similar material where it occurs. So something else to think about during your next visit to the Southside Community Arts Center, in addition to what's behind the Burroughs Gallery's pine paneling, what's above me that I cannot see. And so thank you to the Chicago Architecture Center, thank you to the Southside Community Arts Center, and Future Firm and design team for continued collaboration. Thank you.
Great, amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out tonight. And I always say after Kennedy presents, I learn something new every time you present the project, and it's absolutely true. It's been such an honor to work with Kennedy on this, to understand the building as an index of the many generations that have come before, and all the life that in Bronzeville we hope to honor with this project moving forward. I'll start by saying I do think this project brings together history and future in a really unique and profound way. Kennedy, Monique, and I are really the tip of the iceberg of a much larger team, many folks who are here today. So I will try to do justice to this project, which, as Kennedy mentioned, any one element we could speak for hours about and have no problem. But so you've seen the space in Kennedy's presentation, and now you see it here on Michigan Avenue, the historic building, and the two vacant lots to the north, generously donated to the center by board member Susan Smith. When we started thinking about this project, we worked on programming with SSCAC and their staff members. And what we learned was the footprint that was needed for all the work that the center does in education, in exhibitions, and engagement of the community required a bigger footprint than what the space entailed. So we came up with this idea of an addition to the building that would actually sit behind the historic building, almost like a backdrop to the historic facade. There's something about the massing, the T shape that you see here, that actually helps this kind of disappear behind the historic building. And there's a 3-story portion to the south that is hidden a little bit behind the Michigan Avenue building, and then a 2-story portion where there will be a new entry at grade. You've now seen this image 3 times, so you know how significant it is to everyone on the team. And I think for Monique, Kennedy, and I, we see this photo in kind of different ways. And for me, it's interesting that the front stoop, the front stair of the historic building was really not just a way to get up and in, but it's a space to gather. It's a space to come together. It's a space to form community. So when we were thinking about the new building entry, we wanted to find a way that we could expand that stoop symbolically so that it grows to be a space for more artists to come together, but also significantly that the new entry would also be accessible. It'd be universally accessible to people with strollers, to people in wheelchairs, and could also be a space for creative practice. So you see here in the site plan, that's the historic building in orange, Michigan Avenue to the left, and the new building at the rear of the site. The new main entry to the building will be in through the new addition, up a long stair and ramp that is calibrated so that it's especially long so that we don't have to have handrails, and therefore it can also serve as a space of performance and engagement. These were some of our early sketches of that new entry, and you can imagine that in the future, not only is there a new photo on the new entry that can also expand to the historic stoop, but then this can be a space for a presentation, for coming together informally, or just meeting somebody who you haven't met before. When we spoke with the center in the beginning of the project, it was really important to them that the entire space be fully accessible. So one of the architectural ideas, you'll see here the historic building in orange again and the new addition in blue, is that all of the floors will be aligned. So this will allow the building to operate as one continuous campus rather than feeling like you're in a historic building and then a new one. Similarly, in section and elevation, we organize the building so that the uses in the new addition would align with the ways that the historic building was used. So in level 1, that'll be a very public facing space with galleries. Downstairs, classrooms, meeting spaces, and support spaces. Level 2, offices for the staff, as well as new archives and collection spaces. And level 3, which I think of as the party floor, but is an event space for gathering and coming together. So you start to see in the rendering that new entry and the long stair and ramp, as well as the roof deck that will be in addition to the 3rd floor space. We had the opportunity also to look in the archives was when we were developing the design of the project. And I think there are so many things in these photos that I see that were also clues to the design that would come to follow. In the space on the top right, you can see that art was often hung by curators at a lower sight line to allow children to participate in exhibitions. So there was really kind of spatial consideration, even in the curatorial and exhibition practice, of a space that was inclusive to everybody. And then in the bottom image is like my favorite kind of little SSCAC mystery, is that on top of the radiators, there were wood boards, which people who are familiar with, people used to sit on and chat and come together. And I think it's just an ingenious way of understanding that no part of the building, even building systems like radiators, is a space that shouldn't be a space for coming together in joy and in community. As Kennedy mentioned, I think the Burroughs Gallery, of course, is one of the most honored and therefore also challenging from an architectural point of view space to revisit. And it was wonderful to see this image from before the ACT ceiling that some of you are familiar with now, that was part of the Bauhaus renovation. And I love that it was a way that during the Bauhaus renovation, architects were trying to think about how do we make a Gilded Age living room instead feel like a space of exhibiting and experiencing art. So in the renovation, the Burroughs Gallery will remain as it is, but we will install a new drywall ceiling that contains all the kind of invisible things that make viewing and exhibiting art really important. New HVAC for temperature control, humidity control, lighting that has color rendering index that allows us to view art in the way that it was intended by the artists, as well as audio and visual capacity for new media for artists of the next generation. This is a view of Gallery 3 at the ground floor. And I think from a design point of view, we really tried to keep the architecture very quiet for it to be a blank slate for the exhibitions that would come in the future. But as I mentioned before, one of the goals of SSCAC was to implement museum-grade conservation standards for temperature, humidity, and lighting. So we referenced both Smithsonian standards as well as the Secretary of Interior standards for art conservation and preservation, along with working with Lamar and Rebecca and other team members at SSCAC to establish those guidelines. So I think that when you are in those spaces, I will say look less at the walls and the floor, instead think about the temperature that you feel and the works that may come on loan from other exhibition spaces and institutions nationally and internationally. At level 2, I think it was really important for us to learn that SSCAC is also a space of scholarly study, of archives, and a way of honoring the past. So there will be new spaces for staff members, but there will also be archives and conservation spaces. And then when we get to level 3, you see a renovated ballroom on the top floor that will be a space for SSCAC classes, for seminars, a place for an event to celebrate an artist, or to rent out to a community organization for an event. Similarly, you see the new event space on level 3 in the addition that includes the roof terrace that will look out over Bronzeville that we're incredibly excited about. When we started thinking about the exterior wall of the project, one of the first inspirations that we came to was the work, Margaret Burroughs' own work as an artist, including the work of printing, which involves kind of subtraction and etching as a way of mark making. And so we thought, is there a way to develop the design of the exterior wall for this project that isn't about adding, but maybe is also about taking away? So we started thinking about the story that I think is known to everyone here who is a part of the SSCAC community, but that the pine panels in the Burroughs Gallery, different from drywall in a white box gallery, bears the nail holes of every artwork that has hung there in that gallery over time. So instead of a nail hole that you would then patch over after an exhibition was complete, you can see that the pine boards of the Burroughs Gallery register the works of every single artist who came before. So we developed a strategy for the exterior wall and weathering steel that involved rubbings of those nail holes and a translation of them into a perforated panel that could be fabricated and installed on the exterior of the building. I think what's really interesting to me is you see that there's always a densification of holes at kind of eye height, but there are still also the holes lower down in the panel based on those images that we saw earlier in the presentation. So you can start to see a rendering of that entry patio that you come into, as well as the holes that let in light into what we've been starting to think about as the ancestors' garden, as it continues over the lobby space as well. It's also been really important to us as we think about building the addition for the future, that this project will be LEED Silver and is also has sustainability as one of its goals. So folks who are in the neighborhood and have gone by the site lately will notice that we were digging the 9 geothermal wells that go over 200 feet into the ground that will use the stable temperature of the earth to heat and cool the building. It will be a fossil fuel-free building, an all-electric building that can accept renewable energy, part of ComEd's Community of the Future. And there are all sorts of other kinds of strategies that we've used, from water reduction in plumbing fixtures to low-emitting materials throughout the building. And for me, this is a strategy that reflects SSCAC's goals to influence and support artists for the next 80 years to come. It's about sustainability of the building's operations. So view now from Michigan Avenue of the historic building and then the open site. And then you can see Brown Mobin Berglund team has been out there in the cold in the winter, putting in the shoring that in this complex urban site both retains the foundations of the historic building, the adjacent sites, as well as the alley. And we're proud to be able to share this project that for SSCAC is going to be a hub for the 80 years to come. There's a way that I've been thinking about the holes in the facade that I think some of you have heard me talk about before, that the legacy of the artists who came before now will let in light to the building for the generations to come. Thank you.
You see, Monique turned over the cup, which only keeps me from doing it. All right, well, excellent. So let's get to the questions. You were so thorough, the three of you. I went through 4 or 5 different versions of my questions, erasing. So we'll see where we go. But I want to start with one thing I was pretty curious about. Whose VW was that in that Whose Volkswagen was that? The blue Volkswagen?
Yeah, did we cut out?
Monique, you want to?
It was Howard's.
Oh.
Was that Howard's?
That's yours. Yeah. From the
So it was a former caretaker of the Coach House, and it will be reimagined in the future. Fahim Majid is promised to make an art project out of it. So soon, we had to get rid of it. There were people from the community that were going in there and doing things that we thought we didn't need on the site.
Sure.
I'll wrap it up that way.
All right, that's well put. So talk about, if you can, talk about, and I want all of you to get into this, to sort of talk about the moment that we're in as a city and as a nation, and how that informs what you're doing, the importance of what you're doing. It's all, it's not dissimilar to how it started. I mean, there was kind of things happening, and the center becomes an outpouring of that, and now there's something happening now. Talk about that a bit.
So that's interesting. I had a conversation this afternoon with some students from the School of the Art Institute, and we were talking about the founding of this building in 1940 and how this was a transitional period and a time when it was a lot of political upheaval. And I asked the question, I said, so how does that feel for you right now? And they all said, we're there again. And we are. We are at a moment in time, it's a different moment, but it's still a very critical moment in time where we see intention to erase history, to change the conversation. And the Southside Community Arts Center plans to be a part of this conversation for the next 85 years. And we are doing the work to make that happen. And so do I think that this is critical? I thought about 1940, and I asked the students to imagine being in 1940 where there really was no place for them to go, and why a building such as the Southside Community Arts Center was so significant and important. And then we think about it now, where these same students are finding that the mere nature of them showing up is causing people to feel a certain kind of way. So in a different way, they don't necessarily need one building, but what they do need is a space that they feel comfortable and confident in, to gather, to have communion, to have conversation, to learn and grow. So essentially, we are back to the future. We are back where we started, with different dynamics, but nonetheless, the critical nature of the significance of this building remains important.
Kennedy, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think about how 4% or less than that of all properties that are on the National Register of Historic Places are associated with known history of Black people in the U.S. And so it's really critical that we have tangible remnants of buildings in the built environment that are associated with Black life and our existence in this country. And while in preservation we do, work on preserving the intangible remnants, but it's all the more important to have the tangible remnants like the Southside Community Arts Center, because we see it in our landscape, and you can provide a connection to self, your past, present, and future selves by seeing the physical structure there. And so it's really critical that we continue to invest in the built environment. Like I said, historic preservation is storytelling about the built environment, and it's all the more easier to tell that story when we have physical buildings.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think?
No, it was also wonderful to hear in your presentation the framing of these two significant moments at SSCAC as about immigration and migration, and about movements of populations. For me, actually, the project architecturally has kind of a through line through crises being faced by Chicago, but also many other major cities. One is vacancy on the south and west sides, right? These are two vacant lots that will be activated in a new and transformed in a new way. It's also about ecological crisis and the climate crisis that I think is facing all of us, but can be addressed in a way through architecture and design. But I think most importantly, what has been really wonderful to learn about the center is that the center is it's a catalyst, right? It brings people, and then those people go forth and do wonderful projects of their own that amplify the kind of creative thinking and creative imagination that happens. So I hope we can start thinking about the space that way, that it's not just about the kind of perimeter of the site, but actually the way it amplifies creative voices to address these kind of concerns in new ways, which is really what we need, I think, in the future.
I want to jump back and ask one more history question. I was listening to your presentation, both of you, the three of you, and I noticed that there's two critical points in the city's history. Well, there are at least two, but certainly in 1893, the World's Fair is here and pushes forth all kinds of things in Chicago, including the time in which the house was built, and then the height of the Great Migration in 1940, and I lost my, and that was important to note because the World's Fair often gets the credit for everything, right? From Cracker Jack to everything else. But what this reminds us is that the migrants from the South, Black migrants from the South, we came here fully formed. There's a sense that we kind of came here, with the empty plates and open mouths, and it's like, no, we came here with stuff, much like we came from the motherland. That's another conversation. But so talk about that and how, and the two of you, the three of you, and Monique getting in on this too. Talk about that importance and how this building plays a role in that.
Okay. I was going to say Kennedy can start it, but I'm happy to start too.
You want to start, Kennedy, or do you want to?
Yeah, I appreciate how you frame that. I mean, we didn't come here with no skill. Without skills, without talent, and the center was in response to existing arts within us. We just needed spaces where we felt safe, comfortable, welcome to continue. We're already germinating that seed in the South, and expanding on that, but continue to flourish and blossom. Same thing, I just gave a presentation relating to the Harlem Renaissance last week. It's the same thing. White publishers only wanted to publish music that really demeaned us, but we were very talented musicians in the South coming up from the North. The same thing, these major cities, we needed a space where we could bring forth our quote dormant talents in a way that we could be respected and in a space of community. And so the center is responding to that and continues to respond to that to this day.
So thanks for that question. Bronzeville has been one of the migration spaces where people came. I mean, we've got music, we've got some of the most amazing Chicago history started and was, certainly my colleagues and friends from the West Side may have, they'll expand that conversation. But I will say that Bronzeville was the heart and the soul. So even when we think about art, but we think about Nat King Cole, he used to come in town and play. So not only were artists, who drew and photographed, they came. Gwendolyn Brooks, a great friend of Dr. Burroughs, wrote some of her poetry. Some of the Afro-Cobra movements and other movements sprung from the Southside Community Arts Center. When you say talk a little bit about we didn't come, hat in hand. Fully talented, like most, and migration, immigration individuals, The opportunity is what they were looking for. It was not about we didn't have or we didn't know how. It was about a space, a place, an opportunity. And the center served that in the arts. You know, I think about Gordon Parks having a dark room in the basement. I mean, you know, he was the first photographer to photograph for a major magazine. And Life magazine, my grandma used to have some of those, and amazing photography. But we weren't looking for anything but a space and a place to convene. And the center served that. And so the fact that it will serve the next 85 years, the generations that come beyond this room in ways that they find meaningful and important, it remains critical.
You know, we saw a lot of interesting spaces that you showed, and interesting new spaces and new uses for existing spaces. Give a sense of what the artists and the public are able to do, will be able to do in the new building that they perhaps can't do now.
I mean, do you want to start? What are you most excited about?
So for the team that's here, we are very excited about new bathrooms. It's basic sometimes. We're very excited. It's real. I'm going to not belabor that, but yes, it's very real. We're very excited for the collection and the archives that it will have, the museum quality standards that it deserves. I know that art and archival materials change over time when they're not stored properly. And so this is really, really critically important. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that we're really looking forward to air conditioning in the summer. When it hits above 80 plus and you're in the building and we've got a series of fans, we're looking forward to that as well. So yes, some of the highlights.
We keep joking that when we were talking to some folks at the Art Institute early in this project, we learned that the data tracking shows 80% of people go to the bathroom first before they go to an exhibit. And you all are nodding like that's what you also do. So the bathrooms, I think, are no small thing. And I think we're joking about it, but I actually think a lot of those invisible pieces are actually so critical. For me, the other space that we haven't talked about that much actually is the outdoor space. I think it's going to be really wonderful. SSCAC has been doing really exciting activation and programming of these lots to the north of the building right now, and I think there'll be more formal space to do that, as well as outdoor power, outdoor lighting, to think about ways that art can be shared and made, and engaging the public in kind of different kinds of spaces over time.
And I've got one more thing to add that is really exciting for me, and that is we are going to have accessibility. Bronzeville is a community that has a strong percentage of elders and individuals who love the center, who want to participate and be a part of the center, but they always haven't been able to enter. And having an elevator, having the accessibility to allow everyone to come into the building, that one warms my heart. So I'm really excited about that because everyone deserves to be able to come to the center.
You know, we've got about, 4 minutes for 4 questions, if I heard you correctly, Ian. All right. So give me a sense, the new addition, the entry that we're looking at now. Talk about the material that you're using there. You talked about the perforations, which is ingenious, but talk about the material and why it was chosen.
Yeah. Well, and I want you to also weigh in on the weathering steel a little bit too, because I feel like Kennedy and I helped craft also the kind of story around this as well. So you can see those perforations in the facade are going to be in a weathering steel rain screen. I think one of the things that we're really excited about is that it will patina over time. So it will also start to index the neighborhood and the way that it has been used and the nature and the kind of wind and rain around it. And then when Kennedy and I were also talking about it, she pointed out that one of the the sculptures in the South Garden is also weathering steel and has been kind of an icon and part of Southside Community Arts Center for a long time, as well as different ways that wrought iron and steel were part of the historic building. For me, it also, the kind of warmth of the material starts to evoke a little bit the brick of the building as it is, as well as some of the adjacent buildings on the block. I don't know.
I guess I want to give a shout out to Rebecca. Is it all right if she's still in the room? Rebecca?
She
Yeah.
was here.
Yeah. Oh, she stayed just in time for my history. Okay. But she's one of the board members who brought it to my attention, the importance of the holes in the pine panels. So it lends itself to the importance of collaboration with the owner and that you all are a part of the team. And in preservation, something we might miss are the quote, little details, but the details that connect people over time who have used and experienced the space. And sometimes it's like the intangible or the non-traditional parts of a building which are character defining features, the little holes in the pine paneling. So it's a great example of collaboration for the entire spectrum of the team with the owner too.
Excellent. So I'm going to ask one more question. So get your questions ready. Otherwise, I'm going to walk through like Phil Donahue in the old days and put the microphone in your face. What do you think? Well, let's see. 1 second. How have artists shaped this building? Have you had conversations with artists and the public? And how have those conversations helped shape the building?
Yeah. So we just had Norman Teague, who was in the room. He was here. He had to leave. He had another event.
The food ran out. That's what we love.
He is a sculptural furniture artist with a strong background in architectural design, and he was and is very excited about potentially creating some furniture for us that will be created from one of the trees that actually came down. That's our goal, is to have him create something from something that was already here. The artists have talked about the importance and significance. The whole concept of an ancestors hall came not only from the staff and their support and love of, how important the Burroughs Gallery was, but also the artists. Mm-hmm. Everybody wanted to make sure that we were not getting rid of the wood paneling. And that's also really, really important, because there are people that come in, they're used to white box exhibition spaces where the walls are white, it's all, one way. We'll have those now as we go forward. But we also have this historic concept. We're going to be using intention to use the Burroughs Gallery as an ancestors hall, where we'll be able to showcase some of our collection, that we'll be able to bring out things that you might not get to see on a regular basis that we have, but we haven't had the space and capacity to bring them out. And so you'll get to see some of those. We've got a couple of new members of our board who are artists, and they're super excited to be a part of all the conversation. The community is engaged. The community, we talked about this a while. I know Bill and I, how important it is that the community be proud of this project too. The artists be proud. The community, if we did it wrong, oh boy. And our goal is to not do that. And certainly to make sure that we have as much as we can in a way that reflects how cherished we feel about the community and the artists.
Excellent, excellent. So now I'm going to open the floor up to questions. Young lady right in the front, please. There's a mic coming. And a mic is coming? A mic is coming. Hold on, it's coming. Thank you.
Hi. You did a wonderful job. I love it. I can't wait to see it. 2 questions. Where's the piano? And parking.
I'm going to take the piano. Piano for 10. The piano is in storage. We we wrapped it up. It's going to be in storage and we're working around it. So we had, believe it or not, we had multiple pianos. But the pianos, the one that has been most significant, we're keeping, and you will see it again. We also will have a project later, fundraiser, to help us restore that, because it's an important piece. And so I think the last time we checked, it was like almost 60 grand to restore it. So coming to a fundraiser near you. Parking. We are going to continue to work on parking. Parking is something that we certainly know is important, but we are in a residential neighborhood, and so we have to be mindful of that. We also are seeing people are shifting. There's always been parking along Michigan, but we're also seeing people are shifting how they use transportation. And we've got so many more people that show up and use Uber and different things. And so if we can get additional space, that will be a goal.
Excellent, excellent. Other questions? Yes.
So I haven't heard where this money's coming from. Who are the major donors? Also, I remember when I was there, I was fascinated by the panels that were on wheels and would come out. And I hope you're keeping the stairwell, the Bauhaus staircase. Are you? Okay, thanks. Can you tell I'm CAC?
Thanks for the tip. Yes. Yes,
But who are the donors? Where's the money coming from?
Oh, thank you for that. So the good pivot for that question is our board member and the co-chair of the Capital Project, Bill Michael, will be talking a little bit about that momentarily. We have had some amazing funder contributions, and we're close enough to see the end, but we are far enough to really still need support. And Bill's going to talk a lot more about that. But thanks for giving us that walk into that. Thank you.
Well, other questions, or Bill, do you want to talk about that now, or? All right. Sure.
Hey everybody, my name's Bill Michael. I'm not shy, not about this one. My name's Bill Michael, and it's my privilege to be a member of the board on behalf of Deborah Jennings-Bryan, our board chair, and our entire board, and the incredible staff at the center. First of all, I want to thank you, and let's put our hands together for CAC for putting this event together tonight. We're so thankful that you're here, and we're so excited about this project. Can you take me to the next slide? To answer your question, we've had lots of great supporters of this project, and we've been so fortunate to have incredible support from both the city and the state, and a number of incredible foundations that have really gotten us to this point. But I also want to acknowledge that over 100 people in small and large ways have given to our community renovation fund. And I think one of the great things about the center is the way it brings so many people together to make so much possible. We are in the midst of an $18 million campaign, $15 million of which will support the renovation and revitalization of this incredible building, and $3 million of which will support the ongoing operations and the programming that will bring this building to life. And I'm really excited to say that we're at $12.5 million. We are well on our way. As you have seen, shovels are in the ground. This building is happening. And exactly how much of this building happens, how quickly, is what we're working on right now. So we're going to open an incredible building. I'm staring at the incredible construction team of B&B, the incredible design team and engineers, and Aaron from Urban Resolve. Everyone is going to make sure this building happens, and it is going to open in 2027, hopefully Q1 or Q2 of 2027, and it's going to be incredible. But we absolutely continue to hope to look for some more support. And I think I would ask you, as you reflect on everything you've heard tonight, and we've all seen that photo 3 times tonight of an incredible group of artists sitting on that stoop, which is actually the second photo that was taken. There's a historic photo taken before that. And as Monique said, we can't wait, hopefully in Q2 or Q1 of 2027, to retake that photo, both on the historic stoop and on the new stoop. And as you think about the artists that have been part of this space for 85 years, but more importantly, about the incredible artists, the community, the youth that are going to be inspired and be part of this space. And we keep saying the next 85 years, but I'm going to say the next 100 plus years. That this building is a part of an incredible tradition, a rich art vibrancy in Bronzeville, but most importantly, in part of an incredible future. And it's that next generation of artists that is going to build off this tradition and this history that we're hoping you'll help us make possible. And we hope we're going to do that by helping us spread the word, by being part of our community and being ready to celebrate with us when we open the center in 2017, reopen the center in 2017. And if you yourselves or you know of people that might help make that possible, that QR code right there takes you to the center's website and making that possible. And I and Monique and so many others would be happy to talk to you more. But what tonight you've seen, I hope, is a vision for a history that leads to a future that is so vital right now. We think about the time we're in right now. We think about the importance of Black art. We think about the importance of Black arts movement. And we think important about inspiring the next generation to tell their stories, their way, and create real change through art. And you are making that happen by helping us spread the word, by helping us celebrate this project, and by helping us make sure that we can get every part of this building built when we open in 2027. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Thank you. Have a great night.
You don't get to close the show, Bill. My goodness. So before we go, though, I'd like to know, do we have any more questions from the audience, particularly after that impassioned, almost evangelical speech we just heard? Yes. I can't quite, you have a hat on, I think. Can't quite see.
Dr. Doug.
I'm getting old, man.
Oh, technology. How about that? Yeah, Dr. Doug Williams. Question about landscape architecture. What are some of your thoughts about that? I would almost do it for free, but I have student loans to pay. But I'm putting my name out there. I've heard some people mention me in loving ways, and I appreciate that.
Yes, it's wonderful to see you, and I feel like we chat about this at almost every event. I will point also back to Bill's impassioned call for support. One of the things that we are hoping to do is to build out the landscape of the North event lawn and plaza, as well as the South Plaza or the South Garden as part of a later phase. So folks who are also excited about landscape architecture, who love the idea of that space being verdant and lush and also still very usable, reach out to Monique and to Bill and Dr. Doug, then we'll chat. Thank you.
Great. I just wanted to share, I'm actually reviewing some of the ASLA design competitions from around the world. And I happen to have worked for the National Park Service headquarters, just to put that out there for the audience. I know you guys already knew.
Resume, brother.
I have that too. The CV. I have a CV. I used to teach with you at IIT, but I guess they dropped the ball, and I'm on NBC now with Chicago Med. But that's another story.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Sure. Great presentation, everybody. I wanted to say that for as long as I've been working at the Architecture Center, we've been bringing teen cohorts to the Southside Community Arts Center. One of my favorite things about it is just how good your staff is at telling the story of the building. When the new center opens, since you've both all done an incredible job of talking about the historic building and the restoration of that, as well as the addition, is there going to be any kind of interpretive, didactic information about the history of the building integrated into the design?
So the answer to that is yes. We haven't fully developed it out at this point, but we are looking at different opportunities through marketing, through QR codes, through funding, different levels of support in that way, and many of the other museums, and leveraging some of the great things that they do, particularly like in the Ancestors Hall, to really talk through when you enter what you're seeing. And so to the best of our ability and our funding, we will continue to tell that story. We're also hoping that in the new building and the growth with the funding for capacity, that we'll also be able to build out a docent program and some other things that will also be able to speak to and talk to about the amazing history of the center.
Maybe just add one thing. No. I mean, I think one of the things that you have probably heard here tonight is that every part of this project has an amazing story, whether that will be the future reception desk that is both made from a tree that was on the site by Norm, who we've collaborated with on multiple projects in Bronzeville, that's inspired by the historic Bauhaus desk, or the pine panels that translate to the facade. Like, every part of this project has been so deeply considered by folks on every part of the team. Kennedy and I have lots of ideas about ways that the building can also speak, moments of interpretation, of kind of didactics, of ways that somebody who's just wandering through can experience the space at 100 miles an hour, but they can also stop and learn more about, I think, many of these incredible stories of the space as it was, as it is, and how it might be in the future.
Well, we're at time, but I like for Kennedy to get a little piece of this if you want it. Something you want to say before we wrap? Oh, yes?
No. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the docent program. I'm so excited about that. So I will come back and be a docent.
All right. Understandable. Well, in that case, we will end there. So thanks so much. Round of applause for Kennedy, for Ann, and Monique,
And for Lee.
and Bill.
And for Lee and Bill.
Oh, and for Lee. Well, if you must. And thank you for coming.